Hello, this is Appetite, back again with another video, and today we're talking about steak, a lovely source of protein that everyone at times craves for, dating back to even the earliest times of the yet to be undeveloped human beings, going far as back to 2.6 million years ago. Part of the reason why meat was so essential to the human diet at the time was the significance of micronutrients, something that was stated previously in my last video. Chimpanzees, by which we evolved to, typically hunted in groups, which resulted in mass consumption of energy that basically depleted them. The meats they consumed contained vitamins like A and K, but also vitamins like B6 and B12 along with iron and zinc that not only fuel you for future hunts, but also are essential to your life, and that any lack of these could result in dire consequences. Not to mention macronutrients like fat and protein were especially hard to come by for early humans to consume in their original diet. Today, meat has come around to be loved by most cultures, making life quite hard without its consumption. However, due to the sheer mass of the different variants, today we'll focus on the standard, just a regular plain steak. With a steak, the fat and protein contents would typically vary in cut. For example, a ribeye is going to be more fatty than that of a filet mignon, a detail that can be noted as its fat marks are far more apparent in that of the ribeye as opposed to the general filet, although the filet is still a good cut. A steak is generally free of carbs and provides all the necessary amino acids required by the body, making a really good source of protein to consume, as seen by this diagram right here where beef has less calories, which is good if you're trying to stay fit. A thing to also note is that when cooking, the general cooking method does indeed matter, as for example, if you add more butter, it will add more calories and fat, which is pretty obvious since butter is basically living fat. A thing to also note when consumption of the meat comes from the general feed of the cow, as grain-fed and grass-fed cows can alter the general taste and contents of meat. Grass was the standard source of food for over cows, and was a healthy form of nutrients, but as a result of the need for faster production and just feeding the general population, we started to feed them grain, which is a combination of corn and soy, and are often given drugs and antibiotics to speed up their growth. I mean, if you search up these mass-produced livestock farms, it's really bad, to be honest. It's really bad. I'm not gonna go too deep into it, but it's just generally inhumane. If you wanna search it up, feel free, but I'm not gonna, torture you with that information. Anyways, to simplify everything, grass-fed grain is just far more nutritious than that of grain-fed, containing rich contents of vitamin B12, B3, and B6, which is rich in highly bioavailable iron and zinc. Although grain-fed cows do have this as well, it's not nearly as much as grass-fed. It also has high vitamin A and E and is much richer in antioxidants. In short, you can think of grass-fed cows as just a superior version of grain-fed cows. Moving beyond this, let's move on to the health benefits in consideration of grass-fed. First, it reduces muscle wasting, as animal protein is associated with higher retention of muscle mass, even for older adults who may not even exercise. It also aids in immunity, giving plenty of nutritional support to help fend off various colds and diseases, acting as a better option as opposed to the processed meats, as it has less sodium and preservatives, which you might enjoy in a typical steak. However, there have been adverse effects where the American Heart Association explicitly states limiting intakes of saturated fats to about 13 grams a day. Eating steak does contribute to that, so although steak may provide all the necessary proteins and nutrients needed, it's not really recommended to eat it on a daily basis, as doing so could have adverse effects like raising cholesterol levels, which can develop fatty deposits which can cause blockage of blood flow and may cause a heart attack and stroke if these deposits were to suddenly burst. And you can see this in the picture right here, where the fatty deposits are piling up in this second picture, and then it grows up too big to the extent where basically the blood cells cannot go past it. Another point I would like to note is why a steak tastes so good, primarily being the Maillard reaction. Basically, a steak being seared or grilled undergoes a chemical reaction called the Maillard reaction. Note that all Maillard reactions must go through heat, which means through which the reaction between the amino acids and sugars would eventually lead to the browning of the steak, and a complete mixture of compounds and melanoidins responsible for the characteristic flavor and aroma of brown food. And that brown food you're looking at is just like that sear, basically, that brown sear. And you would see that compared to like the light brown, I guess like tannish, compared to the like dark, beautiful color of a typical steak if you were to cook one. Also, somewhat similar to caramelization, the two processes are quite different as the Maillard reaction involves amino acids, while caramelization involves the pyrolysis of certain sugars. The Maillard reaction is also found beyond that of steaks, including the likes of french fries, fried dumplings, cookies, bread, marshmallows, and such, all of which has that really distinct browning seen on the outside. This is why the steak is so good. It's these browned foods that make it really, really good to the human body and to your taste buds in general. However, there are some exceptions, such as the mashed potatoes, due to its high volume of water present during the short cooking process, that prevent the combination of amino acids and sugar from uniting. And because they're not uniting, well, that browning doesn't happen, the Maillard reaction doesn't happen, and why the steak wouldn't taste nearly as good. And that's why many believe many prefer the steak to have a much tastier taste than mashed potatoes. Also, given the flavor and aroma we all love, there has been some suspicion in the Maillard reaction in producing acrylamide, as seen in this really bad visual image. I'm sorry about that. It's the only one I could find. But there's a chemical formula right there. And it's basically a human carcinogen found in cigarette smoke. Yes, cigarette smoke. So carcinogen being a substance that could cause, it's basically a substance that could cause cancer if really consumed too much. And that's why you shouldn't really eat a steak too much, because that's basically like having bits of like cigarette smoke that you're consuming, and that's not really good for your human body, and definitely not good in the long term. However, its effectiveness does remain somewhat tamed, so you can eat some brown food, just don't eat a lot of it. And that's basically it temporarily. I guess you can consider this, like last time, a pretty terse view. I didn't really go into depths of other kind of steaks. So I might make another video on it, but who knows. Anyways, thanks for watching this video, and make sure to stay cool. Goodbye.